Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. This is going to be a great episode with Geoff Rowley, professional skateboarder, entrepreneur, professional guide. He's just coming off an incredible sheep hunt with Jason Hairston and his guiding partner, Jake Franklin. This is going to be just an incredible episode. I think you'll find a lot of value in it. Guys, I want to thank you for your support of this podcast. The numbers of downloads just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, just month over month, and that's attributed to you guys' loyalty, and I just appreciate that. If you'd like to send me any kind of email, comments, questions, what have you, send it to my email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can also follow along on my Instagram page at jscottoutdoors. Send me a direct message. Love hearing from you guys. Love seeing trophy photos and success photos and such from you from all your hunts. I also want to thank the sponsors, GoHunt.com Insider, Kuiu Ultralight Hunting, Outdoorsmans.com, and PhoneScope. And you can check the show notes of this podcast to see the different discounts that you can get with each one of these companies. And I really appreciate you guys supporting those sponsors, and I hear from the sponsors how you guys come out in droves and support them. It means a lot to me. So, guys, thanks for everything. Hope you really enjoy this episode. It was special to me. I think there's a lot of great little nuggets in this podcast. So, take care.
Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today I have professional skateboarder, outfitter, and entrepreneur on the line, Geoff Rowley. And Geoff, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic today, Jay. Thank you for having me on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you today. You, like we were just talking before the intro, you're still on a high from being with Jason Hairston, you and Jake were the outfitters guiding Jason on his unbelievable hunt, which resulted in the biggest Nelson I ram ever harvested, not only in the state of California, but across the whole western U.S. It's pretty special to be able to be a part of something like that, and I'm excited to hear how you're doing after such a investment of time that you guys, the Kika Worldwide team, put in on this deal. And I'm excited to talk to you about your background in professional skateboarding and how we have some crossover. You're an avid hunter, and I just interested to kind of get in that brain of yours and pick away at some things and questions that I have personally, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, likewise, man. I've been following your show for many years, and you cut straight to it, no bullshit, just straight to the point, and I really appreciate that. Like a really educational resource that is extremely valuable to the hunting space, the hunting industry, the outdoor industry, and our outdoor communities as a whole. And so thank you for that. As far as how I feel after this big hunt, I'm still on a sheep high. Every time like I help on a sheep hunt, and the animal's harvested and it goes down, I'm on a high. I'm on a sheep high. I want more of it, and I want more of it right now. But Goliath's a little bit different. That's a little bit different. That's years and years of going after the unhuntable ram that just vanishes during hunting season, right? Like everyone's had that issue of, shit, I found a huge animal. How do we freaking kill the animal? How do we put the animal down, if he disappears? So we had that kind of year round trying to figure out exactly what he did, where he moved, why he moved there, and how we were going to approach this hunt. So I'm still on that hunt mentally right now. I'm still on. I just was texting Jason this morning, texting Jake this morning, and texting him last night and yesterday morning going, I'm still there. Like, I'm still ready to go. Like, so a huge accomplishment. I'm really proud of Jake Franklin, who the outfitting business, he owns the outfitting business, runs the outfitting business, and I guide for him. And I'm just really, really proud of the amount of work that he put in, and all, all the bullshit we all have to deal with as an outfitter, to rise above that and just be a really good person with a strong sense of integrity and moral structure. That's what this hunt means to me. I'm really proud of him, and I'm really proud of all of our guides, and I'm really, really stoked and happy for Jason that he was able to harvest his Grand Slam in the state of California. And the strange thing is he harvested it with people that had helped him on all of his sheep hunts, unknowing. So we were all sat around camp at the end of the night going, shit, like everyone's here that was working on all your Grand Slam. And that was unintentional. So good people came around each other unknowingly to harvest the biggest desert sheep that anyone's ever known of, true desert sheep. And so that's a huge accomplishment. I'm proud for everybody. But as I said, I'm still on a sheep high, so you're going to have to keep working on bringing me down from that.
It's awesome. I know, when you put so much, it's a mental state, and when you get in that, I call it attack mode, or eat, sleep, and kill, where you in essence, that's all you're thinking about is, where is the subject, either ram or buck or bull? What is he doing right now? Where do I need to be in position to see that? How does he continue to give me the slip so much? And you quickly realize, in the grand scheme of things, we're a small part of our environment out there and creation out there. And those animals, while I don't think they have the sense of thought process like we do, so to speak, with as much reasoning and such, they do have an amazing ability to, at times, vanish. And I had talked with Jason, and it's on a prior podcast. I actually talked to him yesterday, and just got his podcast uploaded. And he talked about a lot. I wasn't able to actually listen to that yet, but I do look forward to listening to it. Yeah, he talked about the journey as well, and a couple years ago, Jake showing him the picture of Goliath, and he talks about how he just deep down inside, felt like he was going to have a part in harvesting Goliath, and he truly, in the conversation, talked how he felt at peace that it was going to happen. And there were a lot of pieces of the puzzle that needed to go into place in order for it to happen. But he said he, really never had a calmer sense of peace on a hunt. And, I asked him, like, right before the shot, and, the Goliath was, laying there with his horn basically in the way of his vitals. And, such a small-bodied animal with such a large set of horns, and, how I would feel like I'd probably unravel him. And but and he said he just actually felt the opposite and felt calm, and so I think it's pretty cool. How did your first encounter with Goliath, either in person or through photos and such? How did it all start with you?
Well, Jake and I and one of our other guys, Josh Shulgin, all went up, spent overnight in the range. This was quite a few years ago, and we saw a group of ewes and some other rams with them at last light, a couple of miles away from where we were camped, where we were sleeping. So when we woke up first light, first order was have a look at those sheep, right? And so we get those sheep in the scope, and we see the ewes, and we see a couple of rams. If I remember rightly, it was close to 4 years ago or something, 3.5, 4 years ago. And we started kind of hiking down the mountain and glassing some different areas. And we stopped at one viewpoint to look across to where we'd originally saw those sheep. And all three of us at the same time literally just dropped our jaws and went, oh my goodness, what's that? And that was the first time I laid eyes on him, any of us had laid eyes on him, and I guess that's the first time, and there was quite a few times, many times after that. And like I said, he was a difficult ram to stay on, and he was a peripheral, meaning he would be always a little bit away from the group. So if you found females, you'd really have to scan around, making sure you didn't miss that ram, that was just hanging out somewhere you're not looking. So he was kind of just a different beast right out of it from day one, and so that was the basis for it, Jay. That's kind of where it started. And once you've seen a sheep that big, man, it's something special, isn't it? Something special.
It's one of those things, you kind of remember the first position that his horns were in when you saw him. At least I know I do on a couple of, really large rams. It seems like there's images that are burned, almost into your soul, where you can almost smell the smells, feel the temperature. You can almost just recreate the scene when those images are playing in your mind. And it's rams like that. The one thing about Goliath that I think is just so awesome is how open and how deep his curl is. Obviously how big his base is, but he carries his mass. Yeah, he is absolutely.
He comes up, he opens out, he drops. He's got mass all the way through to the end. He isn't boomed out. He's held it all. He's not young, and so he's a special animal, right? Like to get to that age and be in that shape and hold all of that all the way through. It's a testament to the species. Yes, me. It's they should change it in the dictionary. Instead of having desert sheep, it should just say Goliath and just have a picture of Goliath. That's what we need to do. Let's petition for that.
Sums it up.
let's not bring out those ridiculous ballads that are up in Arizona right now to ban hound hunting. Right? Let's do it the right way. Let's petition for it to get Goliath as the representation of the whole species.
Yeah, I don't think you could pick a better ram. It's just the quintessential. It's an unbelievable feat. It's an unbelievable ram. I love the story. I love the kind of the partnership and the camaraderie of you and Jake and the whole team there, and how other guys had been trying to get the ram, and he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And the reality is he probably, and I said it with the interview with Jason, he's probably just being a sheep and probably had no idea that, there were so many people that, it basically engulfed their lives for years on you guys. And he was just doing his thing, but just a magnificent animal. Jeff, I want to ask you, I want to back up just a second here and get a little bit of your background. And you are, I believe, from England, and talk a little bit about your background as a kid, how you began skateboarding, and how that manifested itself into an unbelievable career for yourself, and kind of how all that shaped being from England.
Yeah. I'm from Liverpool, England, so the northwest coast, a very industrial kind of like, very similar to like Long Beach, California, or San Francisco, California. Just from a visual standpoint, the city is right on the coast. It's a huge port, and it was actually a central place during the slave trade. A lot of like the slaves coming from Africa and India would get filtered from there through the UK and into the eastern border of the United States through Liverpool. I think the Titanic originally set sail from Liverpool, so that gives you a sense of like where I'm from, right? Like a big city on the northwest coast. But if you go 15 minutes west, you're in Wales, right? Wales is a very, very rural area and mostly farmland. If you head north from Liverpool up the coast, you head into an area called the Lake District, which is one of the most beautiful places in the UK and one of my favorite places in Europe. Phenomenal, beautiful lakes everywhere, and abundant wildlife, right? But mostly private. I first started skateboarding when I was 12 years old, and kind of just loved it. And before that, I played a lot of sports and was pretty good at sports. Like I did pretty good in school at like cross country running and soccer and all the classic English games like cricket. Like we had did a lot of sports. And so when I started skateboarding, what I liked about it is that there was no rules, and the creative outlet was endless. I was very much attracted to that, being a part of something with other people, but without it being judged on your way you look, the way you dress, your let's say if you're a heavy set dude. Like when I was growing up, like a fat kid was accepted in skateboarding. When I played soccer, a fat kid wasn't accepted because he couldn't run, right? Like I liked skateboarding because it was all inclusive, and it was creatively just an open board of ideas. And so I started to latch onto that and loved it. And when I was about 15 years old, I skated with a kid who was, I think he was about 10 or 12 years older than me. And he was a sponsored skateboarder, but he was also worked for the Forestry Commission in England. Unbeknownst to me at 14, 15 years old, the guy that I was going skating with in the day, on the weekend, he's going up and he's working for the Forestry Commission in the Lake District. And he did that actually year round. And then eventually one day he just asked me what I was doing that evening, and I told him I wasn't doing much that evening. And then he said, well, do you want to come out with me and we'll go and try and call in some red fox? And I'm like, well, what the fuck does that, excuse my language, what does that mean, right? Like, I was a kid and I wasn't, I grew up in the city, so I wasn't around that. But I grew up also reading a lot of books and biology books on wild animals. I've always been really interested in the dynamics and logistics of how an animal fits in an ecosystem and the relationship it has with all of the stuff around it. And so I was always interested in that stuff. So when I was asked to go out and sit on, try to call in some fox, we did that. We called in some fox. I'm like, wow, that's freaking cool. There's a fox right in front of me right here. And we weren't shooting it because we were on an area where you couldn't have firearms. He was just taking me out to show me, right? And and so I first started going out with him, and then I started going into the high country in the Lake District area, and we would stalk, red deer and roe. And then when we were local, we would sit over badger sets and let all the badgers come out and run all around us. And badgers in the UK and in Europe are a different animal to the badgers that you have in North America here, which are predominantly solitary. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas over there, they live in huge family groups. You can have, 20, 30 badgers in one set, which is a huge earth that might be 6 foot tall in the deepest, thickest area in woodland. And it might have been in that same family group for centuries, right? So I was just slowly introduced to kind of some of those practices through my friend. And then when I moved to the United States at 18 years old, I left behind what I'd started to pursue in the UK, right? And I didn't know anybody here. I didn't own any firearms. I didn't understand the legalities. I didn't know anything about all of the public land that we have, or even how it worked. I didn't understand that we had our national forests, BLM, and national parks and wilderness areas, and what the differences between all those were, along with the legalities of trying to hunt legally and also owning firearms. So I had to educate myself on all of that as I was pursuing my dream as a professional skateboarder. And I became partner when I was 21 years old in a skateboard business, and so I had a duty to that business to help make it work, right? So I didn't have a lot of free time when I was in my 20s and going into my 30s. I didn't have a lot of free time other than a few weeks a year to pursue what I wanted to pursue with regards to hunting. And also when I was younger, I was actually a vegetarian when I was younger, and I didn't eat dairy for about 7 years for health reasons. Because when I removed meat from my diet, which was for health reasons, I filled that in with lots of dairy, and too much dairy wasn't good for me either. And after doing that for 6 or 7 years, I started reintroducing fish and red meat into my diet, and then I never went back. Right? And I never went back from that. But during that period was when I didn't have a lot of free time. Well, during that period, every year I would go on a couple of hunts, each year. And so I would meet my friend who also guided. His name's Andrew Warrington, and he worked for the Forestry Commission in the UK. And he also guided for Judd Cooney out in North. I don't know if you know Judd Cooney, but he's an older Colorado outfitter and a wildlife photographer, really good one. But Judd had hunting camp he had a whitetail and turkey lease in Iowa and Nebraska in the Los Hills. He had, I think he had a bear camp I think it was in Saskatchewan or Alberta, one of those two areas. But I didn't go up to that. I only went to the deer camp and turkey camp. So I would meet my friend out there. And the last week after he'd taken all the clients, I would meet him out there, and he would hunt for himself, and I would be there with him. Right. So I did that for quite a few years, and while I was doing that, I was also lion hunting every year, which is my biggest passion, is hound hunting. I absolutely freaking love it. And so I lion hunted from, I think, 2000, every single year up to right now, bar 1 or 2 years where my scheduling wouldn't allow, I couldn't get away, basically. So I've lion hunted every single year. Well, mostly in Colorado, and then quite a few years now in Arizona, and that's my passion, like my real big passion. But my friend introduced me to that because he was a hunting guide. He's somebody I'd known since I was a kid, and if I had questions, I'm one of those guys too that like doesn't like to walk into something and go straight in and just try to go for the gold. I like to go in and check something out, and I like to really learn and really understand what I'm doing and digest it. If I'm going to go out and hunt a mountain lion, I want to know how and why I was able to catch it, where it was at, why it was there, what I learned before I want to put it down. That's just me. So I spent quite a few years lion hunting, and, before I actually harvested my first lion, right? And that was just the way that I wanted to do it, right? And so, because I find when you trail those big predators, you learn a lot about the ungulates. A heck of a lot, because you're going into areas much like sheep hunting. Now, sometimes you don't want to be in that area. You're there because you have to be to up your potential for success. You're in an area where it's an absolute nightmare to climb, and you're pretty much on your hands and knees to get to a ridge, and you don't even know if you're going to see one sheep. Well, when you're lion hunting, you're on the tops of those peaks. You're in areas where you wouldn't ordinarily go for fun, because it's your duty to keep up with the dogs and to help the dogs and work with the dogs. And so I found out, I'd be in these vantage points and in these areas where, the lions were scratching, or, and you'd learn every time you find one. You go, okay, I understand why he's here, what he's doing, and the way that he's moving right now tells me that he's looking for food, he's hunting, right? So you start to recognize those patterns, and those are what I find really interesting with hunting, is the whole process, the whole process of it. I'm comfortable shooting and killing any animal, but for me, I'm not in any rush to just put them down. I want to learn, and
so for you, it's every bit as much about the process and learning everything you can about a certain animal that you're after, rather than having a hunt where you just come out and boom, right off the get-go, you get one and you kind of didn't really learn anything. You, in essence, would almost rather get knocked around for a few years trying to figure it out and learn as much as you can, so that when you do end up harvesting whatever animal you're after, you cherish it more. Is that a good synopsis, what you're saying?
Yeah, but I'm also comfortable with going on a hunt and walking up and shooting the animal, if that's the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Like right. A buffalo hunt or something, which I've done a couple of buffalo hunts with Jake, and although, yeah, there's the element of danger and those kinds of things, really that's a lot easier hunt than harvesting a huge bull elk on public land, right? Let's face it. So, I'm comfortable either way, but when we're talking about me personally, the way that what I enjoy doing when I'm not helping Jake guiding or when I'm just hunting for myself, I want to learn, right? The more I learn about the bigger predators, the better deer hunter I'll be, right? And so, I really enjoy predator hunting first and foremost, above every other kind of hunting personally, because I find that when you pursue those predators, you find the niche that they play in the ecosystem, right? And you find out areas that maybe that at first you looked at and went, there's not going to be what I think there would be there. And then when you learn a little piece of the puzzle and go, hang on a second, maybe I need to look at that area that everyone's driving past, You learn a lot of that from, if I'm predator hunting, I'm looking at every track and trail I'm seeing. I'm looking at every brush, twig, seeing what's been rubbed against, bitten, freaking dragged against, everything I can smell while I'm going in there. And so you learn a lot. You learn a lot from that, and I find that quite humbling, I feel more connected to the space when I approach it like that than if I just go in and shoot something, which I do. There'll be days I'll go out and I'll go predator hunting, and an animal will show up in the first 30 seconds and it's dead, right? And that's fine. Yeah. Right, but I'm not going to then just keep doing that all day long. Because what is that? What am I learning from that? I'm learning that I can call an animal and put it down. Right? Like, I want to find different ways of putting that animal down. Like, I want to walk out a mountain lion, from just on foot, which I've tried to do before with Rimrock, and we got very, very close. In fact, if we were 15 minutes behind the daylight, ahead of the daylight, which disappeared, we'd have bumped it out of the rocks and I'd have walked the whole thing out the whole day from first light to dark. And that would have been with Randy Epperson. And, like, am I going to get the chance to do that again? Like, it's difficult, right? You have to go, you know what, I'm going to pull the dogs back today and we're going to walk this thing out. And we're going to try and, fill in all those gaps. And, and I did that one day with Randy, and it was the most fulfilling, because what I got to do was I watched every step of where that animal went, unknowing that there's a human trailing it, right? The whole day.
Right.
And so I learned in that particular little area where it was walking to hunt. So where it was going to look for bedded elk, right? Or mule deer, whatever it was looking for. So I learned a lot from that, right? And I can take that into my next hunt, and maybe that, maybe we'll run a line up a tree in 20 minutes. It's not
right. You'll take what you can get, in essence.
Yeah, it's the journey for me that I enjoy, big time. But I am a very, very just year-round, non-stop. All I want to do is hunt kind of dude, where once I get home, the second I get back into, this traffic, the first thing I want to do is head right back to the hills. And like right now, all I want to do is go sheep hunt. I can't get out of my mind. All I want to do, like, as selfish as it sounds, when I've got two beautiful children and a beautiful wife, I want them to be there with me and completely, but I'm obsessed, I'm obsessed with that. And,
do you see a correlation between, your love for skateboarding and it being, I view skateboarding as a real independent sport, meaning that as far as on a professional level, like you are the one that are out there riding, and you are the one that has to perform and pushing yourself. And I'm curious if you took the same approach with skateboarding, or, are you an aggressive style skater, or are you work from sun up to sun down type of skater? Are you one of these guys? I know obviously you're extremely talented at skateboarding, but are you one of these guys that's just unbelievably naturally talented, or do you feel like you have to physically work on your game, so to speak, or your riding every single day to stay sharp? I mean, I'm curious. A little bit
of some of that, I'd say. I don't think I'm the most naturally talented skateboarder, but I do think, like the things that I found that I was picking up quick, I was driven enough to spend the time on that stuff. I'm not the guy that's like training every day trying to win the contest, even though I've won quite a few contests as a younger kid. I wouldn't practice for them. I would just show up and pretty much just go straight into the contest with no practice or no pre-planned run of the way that I could win the contest. That's the fun of it for me. The actual, definitely hard, definitely don't like to give up. And that's something that I got from my father's kind of work ethic. He would leave and go to work, an hour and a half before I would go to school in the morning, because he had to ride a scooter to and from work 3 hours a day to feed his family, right? So when you're looking at your dad through like a freaking mailbox through, as he's leaving in the winter, and you see him driving off, and you're like a little kid. I took that work ethic into an adult, and so I have a pretty strong work ethic that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that my father gave that to me, and And so that has definitely helped, kind of get a foothold in skate. The fact that I'm constantly driven to do what it is that I love. I'm thankful for that, because keeping that motivation and having that reach that pinnacle and stay there is something that people really struggle with. I don't struggle with kind of staying there. I struggle with staying healthy, because when you do something as intense and as physically demanding, and I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast maybe don't skate or don't skateboard, and are probably aware of it now because it's all over the internet and all over cable television, and it's the fastest growing sport in North America, and it has been for, like, as far as I know, the last 15, 20 years, right? And so it's more visible now than it ever was. But when I was growing up, we were victimized, we were put into a corner, we weren't treated nicely, and we were treated like outcasts and like punks, and we actually weren't. We weren't that. We were good people, generally law-abiding, and we had a good sense of camaraderie. And so for me as a skater, I took that from moving from the UK with a really good scene, into moving to the center of the Western world. And I moved to Huntington Beach, California, which is just south of Los Angeles, so the center of the Western world, so to speak. And that was a huge adjustment for me. But I never lost that sense of work ethic or what it was about this thing that I do on a skateboard that I enjoy doing. And I've never had to fight to keep that inside of me. It's always something that's actually part of my DNA, and I'm thankful for. Probably much the same as a hunting guy that's born and raised, loves it, and nothing, no matter how commercialized it can get, he still loves he loves the chase, right? He loves the hunt. And he's always going to have that personal hunting to take him away from all the political crap or all the crap of being an outfitter and dealing with clients and those kinds of things. Well, in skate, I ran a business in action sports. I was partnered in a big business, and so I could easily have been burnt out by running the business and then also being one of the athletes. And it was quite the opposite for me. I knew why I got into this, and I always kept that dear and never let anything get in the middle of that. And I take that same approach to my hunting. I'm like, if we have a goal that we're set, we're gonna hit that goal, and if we don't, we're gonna fall down trying. Then that's just it, And like from a physical standpoint, I'm in the best shape of my life. I made a conscious decision about 4 or 5 years ago that, like, during hunting season now, from most of our Western hunting that we have is September, October, all the way through into January, February. Right? That's the majority of the time, right? So I made a conscious decision from, like, the end of September all the way through the middle of February. A1 priority is hunting as much as I possibly can and helping Jake on as many sheep hunts and deer hunts and elk hunts as he wants me on. Now, I did that because I always put it on the back burner, and life's too short. Life's too short. I'm 41 years old now. I'm still young. I'm still in good shape. I am not going to get to, like, 60 years old and then go, okay, now I want to pursue a lot of the Western big game hunting that I never had the time to just give it everything, Because I could book an elk hunt every year and shoot an elk every single year, and a deer, and shoot a deer every single year, and shoot a bear every single year, everything. I want to get down in the nitty gritty. I want to be thrown right in the trenches, and I want to learn the hard way. And that's how I approach my skateboarding, and it works for me. And that's how I approach my hunting. Is that? So I don't know if that answered your question. Did that even answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. One question I had is, when you moved from the UK to Huntington Beach, in my mind, like, Huntington Beach is, and I think it still is, kind of the epicenter of, skateboarding and surfing and, that Western lifestyle of, action sports like you talk about. I mean, surfing is huge, skateboarding is huge. Like, when you came, what level were you at as far as, were you already a professional? Were you, at the top of your game? Were you competing? Like, what brought you to the U.S.? I mean, did you have aspirations? I mean, you have literally worked with some of the biggest companies and most prestigious companies in the world within the skateboarding industry. Like, did you imagine any of that happening, or were you just a kid that wanted to come skate in the United States? I'm always curious how that progressed.
I was a kid that wanted to come to the United States, and I wanted to see what it was that I looked at and was inspired by all the way through my youth. I wanted to see that first and foremost. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see what it looked like, and I was already professional. I was already a professional skateboarder, but I was young. The industry was real small at that time. It was in a lull. Retail was just non-existent, and skateboard brands and action sports as a whole was just a really small industry. And when I came in, I came in thinking like what I would see in the magazines people were doing every day. Probably like some dudes looking at sheep hunting right now, looking at the game, going, "Wow, these guys are just getting monstrous animals." But when they go and try and do it themselves, they get a reality check, right? They get a reality check of like, "Oh, I can't produce that every single day or every single year like these guys can." It takes years and years and years of just hard work and experience and just lots of work to get to that point. Even if you are, young, or like Jake Franklin, who's still extremely young but extremely experienced at the same time. Imagine what's going to be in his head when he's 50 years old. What he's learned, what he's seen, what he's done. Yeah. It's priceless. It's priceless. So I came as like unknown, but I thought the standard was higher than it was because I was used to looking at the magazines going, "Wow, they must do that every day. My favorite skateboarder, he must be able to do that all day long." And I came to the States to find out, no, it took him a while to get that. And when he got it, like, it was pretty groundbreaking. But, man, it took him like 2 years to get that. And I came in going, no, I need to be able to do that today. And then tomorrow I need to be able to do the same thing again. So I had a different approach that I wasn't aware of. And I just went at it. And I was fortunate enough to get the cover of, like, the biggest skate mag in the world at that time within 2 weeks after moving here, which was pretty insane. I was put on the cover. Was that because of your skills, Geoff? Was that because of your, like, you were doing tricks that nobody else was doing, or your talent level? Like, what? So within 2 weeks, no one likes to talk about themselves like that, right? But
no,
I went out and shot with a photographer, and he was the editor of the magazine, and I went and did something, and he was like, "Wow, that was pretty crazy." And like I said, like I didn't recognize that. And that wasn't really the point, actually, neither. And when he put me on the magazine and cover, I felt really strange. I felt like I didn't earn this. I just went and did it, and he put me on the cover of the biggest magazine. Man, like, people must be looking at this mag right now going, "Who's this dude? Like, what a waste of space," But that's how I felt. I had lots of insecurities. I was just turned 18 years old, so I didn't know. I wasn't comfortable in myself as an adult. I was still learning myself. And I was thankful for the opportunities, but when I was given those opportunities, I took them. I took them, and I stayed loyal to everybody I've worked with, and that's something I'm very proud of. Is that I haven't burned any bridges. I have no bad blood. I have no ill feelings for the companies I've worked with that maybe I don't still work with, or likewise. And and that's. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. But a lot of hard work. Really, like I love skateboarding, and I'll give it everything. Much like hunting, I'll give it absolutely everything. And I think that's probably a big part of my success in that space. Along with, obviously, you need to have the ability to pull that off, right? And if you're a flash in the pan, you're going to be just that. If you don't continue to produce, you're only as good as the work that you're putting out at that time. And action sports is a very young industry, and it'll swallow you up. It will swallow you up. But I always stayed very clear on what my goals were. My goals were to progress my skateboarding and do it for the right reasons, and be thankful that I get to make a living out of it. First and foremost, nothing can touch that. And I'm thankful for that I've made a career from that. And I've had success with that, and now I can really enjoy it. Like, I'm not slowing down as a skateboarder right now, Jay. I'm not quitting a professional skateboarder and trying to pursue a complete career in the outdoor space. I'm enjoying my skateboard. The content I'm putting out and the amount of content I'm putting out is more than I've ever put out. More big video projects, more everything. I'm in my 40s, and I have a bigger and better lung capacity than I had when I was in my 20s because of all my desert and mountain hunting that I do. So going and skateboarding in a skate park, skating around in circles for 3 hours is like actually a joke, really now. And so I'm benefiting from all of my outdoor pursuits, but there is no real There is a similarity to trying to find the biggest animal or trying to break down and figure something out. It's very similar, where I try to find like architecture and things that people aren't looking at and think, shit, I could skate that. Like, there's a roof cap there. Like, if I fell, I'd die. No one's ever done that before. Let's do that. Like, I look at hunting like that. Like, let's look in an area where maybe nobody's looking, but it has what we know that animal needs. Even though 9 times out of 10, that animal might not be there, right? Try different things. Don't get stuck in ruts. Don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to tell people your boundaries, you know, and what you're capable of doing. And I think, that really ties into kind of like the hunt that we just did with Jason, where like it took everybody. It took every little bits and nuances of people's different skill sets to harvest this animal. So when it went down, that's why it was so much more meaningful and so much more just incredible for everybody involved, including conservation in the state of California. I mean, that's a freaking huge deal. And so there is a similarity like that, like the seek and destroy kind of thing, which I think everyone that hunts can relate to. They're like, shit, it's like that in skateboarding. Like, you're in the city center and you're trying to skate a big stair set, but you know that you kind of shouldn't be there doing that because it's private property. But you know that, like, if you want to do that trick that you can only do right there because there's no architecture like that in any kind of skate park, right? If you want to creatively, knock down those doors, you have to figure out how to get that done. You might have to time the amount of time it takes a security guard to walk around the building. If that's 6-7 minutes, then you have 6-7 minutes to get your trick. But if you get caught, you go to jail, right? So with hunting, you somewhat have that. You're like, here's my window of opportunity. If I miss it, like, damn, back to square one, And without breaking the law, obviously, right? And
How important do you think it is to have two passions like you do? You have more passions than two, but to have hunting and have skateboarding, do you seek refuge in either one of them, getting a break from either one of them by pursuing the other one? I know I like to hunt, I like to fish, and one of the things that people always say, well, don't you get tired of it? Well, one of the things I like about hunting so much is that there's all these different seasons and there's different animals to pursue, and just about the time you go through, 30, 40 days of chasing elk, that season goes over and it jumps into deer or it jumps into sheep season, or, in the spring then it's turkey season, and then you've got to break off in the summer, and I do a lot of fishing, and so I feel like I'm wondering if there's a correlation between, all the business stuff that you do within skateboarding and then all of the actual, everyday riding stuff that you do within skateboarding, and then you get to do all these different hunts, so you almost break up mentally where your chase, your pursuit is, you're kind of, stimulating your senses and your brain in this aspect, and then you switch gears and now you're off, hiking up the mountain, going and looking for sheep. How important do you think that is?
I need to have a camera over my shoulder 24/7. That's pretty much like, it would be such a contrast for people to see, how frequently I wake up at 2:45 a.m. or 3:15 a.m. and head out to the desert, and I drive, 2-3 hours before I'm even pulling up to a trailhead and starting to go where I'm at. I do that year round, in our deserts and our mountains. And so when I come back and skate, like for years I put all the outdoor pursuits, I didn't not do them by any means. I put them on a back burner because I had a career, right? A career in action sports and skate, and I was a business owner in that space. So I only had so much free time. I could only really pull out 3-4 weeks of a year, right? Like, and that's max, like in one block, because of all the events, all the places I was obligated to be, all of the retail events, all of the trade shows, all those kinds of things. If you own a business in that space, much like if you're at the sheep show, or if you're at the SHOT Show, wherever you're at, you need to be there. If you're not there, then you get forgotten, right? And especially in a young industry that's all about face value, and so what I do now is like, for so many years, like I've built all those relationships, with all the retailers, distributors, wholesalers, partners, sponsors, whoever it is. I just cherry pick what's really important in skate and action sports for me to be at. I don't waste my time in that space. And in turn, I utilize that time that's freed up to go to be either on a hunt or to be at a hunting event or a trade show. Like, you know, a lot of your kind of Western stuff is, you know, January and February, right? It's earlier in the year, right? Now, I don't have a lot of skate events in January and February, but I have a lot between like April, May, all the way up to August, because that's all the summer months and good weather across the whole world, mostly. So I have to make sure that during that period I cover all of that stuff, and then that allows me the flexibility from like September all the way through to January, February, to fit in all the hunts that are important to me, and then I fit in as much of the other stuff as I can around that. You know, I have a house in Arizona, right? And I've had a house in Arizona for now 13, 14 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have a place not too far from Williams. And
Okay.
I had an injury about 2005, 2 back-to-back injuries. I had a really badly broken ankle in surgery, and then I went straight in. Right when I recovered from that, I busted my knee up and had surgery on the knee on the same leg. So I bought a place in Arizona thinking I'm just going to like basically move here. I'll be able to skate a bunch in Phoenix, and I'll be able to really pursue all the outdoor stuff I've really put on the back burner. That was in like 2004 or 5 or something like that. And I recovered well, like to where I was totally fine. But I spent, you know, the whole of that year, 9 months straight, living at my house there. And, you know, and then a couple of years after that, I met my wife, and we had 2 kids, so I don't get out there as much, right? But I lived there for close to a year, and it's really true to my heart. I love Arizona. If I could move and live in Arizona right now, I would be there tomorrow. I'd be there yesterday. I'll be there all next week for Thanksgiving, and I get there as much as I can. Because I love the state, and I love the public land opportunities, you know, and I love just the topography and the animals that you have access to. And we have that in California. We just have a lot more red tape, you know. We have a lot more red tape that takes the fun out of it, you know. Like having to drive for 3 hours before I get to a trailhead, you know what I mean? Like I know you do that in Arizona just the same, right, when you have to. But you're out of the city within 15, 20 minutes. I'm out of the city in 2 hours, you know.
Right.
So
right.
it's a lifestyle that, like, I live in the city, and I love living where I live for the skate stuff, because it's how. But I get inspired when I go out into, you know, the mountains and deserts. I get inspired to do that skate stuff. So it does help big time, and there is a huge contrast to it, but it does help me mentally. Meaning, I've worked on, you know, product in the action sports, you know, footwear, clothing, apparel, hard goods, soft goods, every piece of apparel that your brain could conjure up. Metals, urethanes, woods, glues, paints, freaking every kind of like medium and printing technique on every kind of material, you know. I worked on a lot of that stuff, so very much involved with product, and so the more I pursue the stuff, I mean, I own a knife company called Civilware, right? And it's we manufacture stuff ourselves locally in kind of Long Beach, Signal Hill, and in the Apple Valley, which is the high desert in California. We work in that capacity, and we make our domestic products in those 2 places. And I have an engineer that's my humble opinion, one of the best handmade knife makers alive today. His name's David Sharp. He's phenomenal, incredible knife designer, engineer, and handmade knife maker. Well, he runs kind of our domestic production and helps me with engineering on our knives. And so it's really refreshing when I'm on a skate tour for 2 weeks, like I did this summer. I did a tour from Texas all the way through to Chicago in the middle of summer and the hottest time of the year. And then I come straight back off that, and I'm going straight into, you know, 115-degree weather in the desert, and I'm hiking freaking past my comfort zone to just look for sheep, and it's completely silent, and there's very limited access, no water, and just no people, right? And then to go straight back into a big, busy, bustling event where there's 2,000 people, it's actually kind of humbling. I get there and I look at it and go, okay, I see this now. I see clearer where I'm at right now. I know what I just did, why I did it, and the value I get from that is priceless. But I bring that into product. I bring it into the creative process, and it makes it easier for me. It makes it more natural. It cleans out the stuff that a lot of times when you're designing stuff, you overdevelop, you overthink. Everyone does that, and if they say they don't, they're lying. Every freaking one over evaluates what they're looking at. You're supposed to with product. It's a lot of times it's the experience that the person has with the product that dictates whether they like it or not. So it's got to feel good. It's got to feel nice in the hand. It's got to sit well in their pockets. It's got to be a step above what they're used to handling, right? And so what that helps me, with skating and the hunting is just that. I can juxtapose them against each other. If I go on a skate trip and I come back, the first thing I want to do is get the heck out of other than, give my children a big loving hug and spend some time with my wife, and that obviously is number one priority. But the first thing personally my head wants to do is to get out to the desert, because I know that I can really process what I just did. I was on a U.S. tour right the way across the country. I can process that if I'm out in a quiet area with no sound pollution, and I'm I know what I'm focused on when I'm going there. I'm not sitting there thinking about new product designs or new knife designs or new locking mechanisms or new ways to do things better. Yeah, I am thinking about that, but I'm not overanalyzing it. It's naturally coming into my head because my head's not cluttered from everything, and I think a lot of kids now and a lot of the world that we live in, it's just too much information for everybody to process. It's not healthy, and so that makes hunting and the outdoor pursuits that much more important. That especially the role that I play, or the fact that I have a following in action sports from my skateboarding, and I can if I say something on my social media, at least a certain amount of people are going to look at it and read it. That gives me a unique opportunity to just educate, or just to be a healthier, younger voice in our space, without me going above and beyond my experience in that space or skill set, opening up doors. You don't have a lot of kids, you don't have a lot of pro skateboarders that hunt. I know freaking all of them. Right, I know the majority of the kids that are out there, and the older pro skaters and the younger ones that are there, because I'm at all those events, and I'm interested in it. So I know the kids that are ripping and the kids to look at, and they're not. The kids aren't coming up that hunt. There's a lot more people in surfing. You see a lot of surfers that are bow hunters or hunt, but there's a lot more correlation between going to the surf and then it's a natural thing, right? You're out in the ocean, in the water, whereas in skateboarding, you're in the streets, in concrete, it's man-made. A guy that's surfing, it makes perfect sense that guy might fish, and then that guy might also like to kill pigs with his bow, and that's how it comes in tune with that, like, hand-to-mouth kind of deal, where you harvest your own meat, and it's healthy, and that goes in along with the surf culture, which is a little bit of an older culture to our action sports, and it appeals to a larger demographic, like a 50, 60-year-old dude still thinks it, when he's on vacation, that it's nice to wear a pair of surf shorts and put his, little flip-flops on. He's not putting skate shoes on, and he's not putting the pair of freaking, skate pants on, is he, when he's doing that? He's past that kind of thing. And so I want to make sure that, like, because it's our kids, it's the youth, right, and they're very much affected by people that are inspired by, and they do listen to that. And so I hope that I can just be a positive voice, especially with me coming full circle and kind of living in the city, guiding sheep hunts and hunting personally, and my personal pursuits of predator hunting, which I live in California, so you can imagine how accepted that is. And if I'm in a restaurant in Southern California, I'm sitting there and somebody overhears me going, "Yeah, I was just on a big lion hunt last week. I shot 4 fox yesterday and missed 1 bobcat." Their first response is they just look at you and go, They don't get it. It's not an interest to them. So what I hope I can do is just raise a little bit more awareness to how the benefits of it, and the biggest benefit, that I see is that just as a wildlife management tool, it's A1. It's A1. It's irreplaceable, and I did want to talk to you about the ballad that's up in Arizona right now, the to ban hound hunt. I don't know if that's something that you
definitely want to talk about.
I'm interested to hear, your viewpoint on it, but from an outsider that, loves the state and is very much interested in sheep and sheep hunting and big predators. I know that the state is spending a lot of money to reintroduce sheep into the Catalinas, just north of Tucson, right, just on the backside of Mount Lemmon. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just from what I remember on it, and I think that they're spending, close to $200,000, right, on sheep reintroduction this year in that area. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
How much? Do you know how much that the state spends on sheep conservation in Arizona?
I don't, from a standpoint of putting sheep back on the mountain, guzzlers. I know that one of their biggest expenses is helicopter surveying. So in order to manage the herds and what have you, they have a lot of helicopter time, which costs a lot of money. But they do spend lots of money year in and year out on, trying to manage the sheep. And the one thing that alarms me the most about the initiative is the fact that I feel like when you take management of wildlife, whether it be deer, elk, sheep, mountain lions, bobcat, whatever it may be, when you try and take that out of the hands of the wildlife managers, the professionals, the people that have been trained to manage our wildlife, and do something like the state of California where, a complete ban on mountain lion, sport hunting, with hounds, or of any kind, you are going to have an overpopulation of predators. And
well, you're removing the ability to manage them, right? First and foremost, you're removing the one tool that allows you to manage your resource. And it's the yin to the yang, right? Without managing the predators, how can you expect to manage the prey, right? Like without the ability to be adaptable like that as a wildlife manager, or somebody that might allocate where those funds go and how those funds are spent. Removing that tool seems so counterproductive to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to reintroduce an animal that isn't threatening to the general public, which is sheep, but it's also not that exciting to the general public like a grizzly bear would be, or a black bear, or your giant panda, right? Which, so that's what I struggle with is just that balance of you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to reintroduce an animal. At the same time, you're going to put the potential of losing the biggest wildlife management tool for that reintroduction, which is being able to manage predators. And it's not the general public that should be dictating how to manage our wild animals. It's our professionals and people with the real experience and on the ground and people out there every day. Because as you know, Jay, like one mountain range one year can be full of elk. Next year you go there and there's no elk there, right? Because it changes. Like the food source changes, the moisture changes, just the economics and the logistics of those ranges constantly changes. So if you don't have the ability to manage half of the wild game in that area, the most important ones, the ones that, if they're left unchecked, can cause serious damage. And you have, wolves squeezing into Arizona, you have wolves squeezing into California, and that is an animal that gets a lot of empathy and gets, wrongfully so, gets way more support than it should. But it's also one of the most misunderstood of those animals that gets way more media attention than it should. Because from my understanding, every study that's ever been done on wolves in North America has pretty much proven them to be indiscriminate killers, right? And I'd love people to respond to that and tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. But from my experience with that, if that's the case, right, and we're going to allow that animal to go unchecked, and we've already allowed it to go unchecked in a lot of the western states, and look at the wasted money and the wasted time and the wasted battles between pro and anti-hunting on that animal. So much wasted time, money, resources. I'd hate to see that kind of start happening in Arizona, because it's Arizona does have a very special just selection of animals, and terrain. And it's mostly public land. It's like 70% public land in Arizona? It's freaking huge.
83%, 17% private, 83% public from the best that I can recollect, and tons of public land. Yeah, and it's incredible. And, one thing that I'd like to point out is, I think it's a shame that houndsmen get labeled as these guys that are, bloodthirsty killers that want to see all lions, wiped off the face of the landscape, off the face of the earth. And, it can't be any further from the truth. And it's always something that, I hear, and it just makes me kind of cringe because, most houndsmen that I know, I'm here managing a ranch in Colorado during the fall, and Hunter Meekum, he comes from a long line of mountain lion history family in Utah, and I've gotten to spend a ton of time with them, and Floyd Green and Andy Knowlton, and there's so many people in Arizona that I know, and they absolutely love lions. They don't want to see lions over harvested. They know their role in they know the lion's role within the ecosystem, and they're not bloodthirsty killers. And it's so crazy to me how the media portrays the guys that really love to pursue, like yourself, it's an easy target, but they really don't know these guys. And I think it's an alarming initiative that they're trying to get, I believe, 150,000 signatures. If they do, it will go on the ballot. And I think it's important that
that goes up in November, right? Are they trying to get 150,000? When does it all go up? Do you know?
I want to say it's. I should know this, but I want to say it's not till after the first of the year. But the reality is, we need to let wildlife managers, who are the professionals, stay in control of managing the wildlife. Everything from, deer, elk, sheep, birds, fish, you name it. They are the professionals. Now, there are wildlife groups that are have input with those wildlife managers who can, I'm not going to say that we should always agree with the wildlife managers and the biologists, because I think it's a situation where some of these groups, Desert Bighorn Sheep Society, Mule Deer Association, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Arizona Elk Society, all those types of groups, can also petition and have their say in trying to help manage the wildlife as best as we can. But, something like this, we need to educate people that are non-hunters, because I think that's the population that, is in the middle. There's a bunch of non-hunters that they're not either way. They're not one side or the other, but they are going to have an opportunity to sway, the vote, so to speak, and they might not even know what they're voting for.
That comes back to allowing the general public the power to be able to dictate how our wild animals are managed, and that comes down to supporting and getting behind our professionals, because what's the point of somebody spending their whole life trying to learn about one particular species and giving up their whole life to be a biologist for that species, only to not even be allowed to do their job, right? That's sad, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Hound hunting it's an easy target. It's misunderstood. It's not something, I think, I've seen a lot of hunters go, I wouldn't do that. Like, you wouldn't do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Why not? Like, tell me why. It's not a good enough valid opinion. Come out, let's go and try this. Right? But from, I've read almost every university paper written on lions, and I think Morris Hornocker was the first who wrote one in 1972, I think it was. And prior to that, we didn't even know how many offspring they had. We didn't know their gestation period, right? We didn't know how frequently they bred, and in what terms and why. And we didn't understand any of the way that they marked their territory. We didn't really know how many offspring they had on average, really, until those studies started happening. Well, how did they catch those cats? They caught them with dogs, right, and with hound hunting. They used the skill set of well-trained hounds that may have been through generations of families and traded off in most of the western U.S. between the people that were really invested in breeding those dogs that were impeccable or had the right trailing capabilities, right? They were using that tool, right? And we've used it in every one of those university studies to learn about this big predator, right? So what are we doing to find out things that we don't know about these animals? We're using skilled personnel, hound hunters, right? And so the hound hunter that spends all day, some of them spend all year round trailing animals, trailing lions, trying to catch them, trying to find where they're at. And some of them let them go regularly. Some of them don't. Some of them shoot every lion that they see. Now, the persona attached to hound hunting is, like I said, an easy target. So when you have somebody that's maybe not acting the way that they should when they're in that position and upholding that negative persona, that just adds more. It makes it an even easier target. So, you know, from a hound hunting standpoint, we really just need to put it down to what it is. It's an incredible tool, and it's priceless, and it's irreplaceable. And if we remove that, the general public's ability to pursue that kind of hunting, we're removing that skill set that allows us to learn things about these big predators that we wouldn't otherwise knowingly have access to or have the ability to learn. And like, I'm not going to take that lightly. Like, what that bill that's up there, like, that to me is just really just a figurehead of just a poor subject to go at the wrong time. It's totally backwards way of thinking, and we know where it comes from. It comes from, you know, the Humane Society and their willingness to lie to the general public to get the votes, to get the agenda that they want. I mean, if you look at their website, right, and I'm opening it up right now. I'm going to open it up right now. If you look at it, what it says, right, why aren't they being held accountable for these things? You know, why aren't they being held accountable? At the top of their page, let's see. Arizonans for Wildlife. Top of the page, Arizonans for Wildlife is working to protect our state's wildcats from extreme cruelty by prohibiting the trophy hunting and trapping of mountain lions, which is already illegal, bobcats, ocelots, jaguars, and lynx. Lynx, okay, in Arizona, okay, there's ocelots and jaguars that pass through here and there now and again. They're already protected. Nobody's out there trapping ocelots, jaguars, or knowingly trailing them, right? And there's no freaking lynx to begin with. And then trapping of mountain lions and bobcats is already banned. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? You can't trap lions in the state of Arizona. Can you still trap bobcats?
No, I believe on private land, right? You can't. I believe you can trap coyotes and bobcats on private land, but I'm not 100% sure, but definitely not on public land. And so what you're saying, they're using words to portray an image, and it's already illegal to hunt jaguars in Arizona.
That's what I'm saying.
There are not even lynx in Arizona, so they're using those buzzwords, or those, you know, they're pulling on people's heartstrings and to try and push their agenda.
Yep. Call them out, and do it respectfully, and do it from an educated place. That's my duty with that. That's the way I feel about that. Is that hit them head on. Don't give them an inch, and it's not okay, and it's damaging, and it's, you know what they're telling? They're telling lies to our children. Right? They're telling lies to our children about a public resource that you and I own. I'm an American citizen. Just, you know, I have dual citizenship. I have a British passport and an American passport. I retain my British passport because my parents are getting old. I don't know if I'm ever going to have to go back there for a prolonged period of time as my parents get older. But I'm a proud American citizen. I love this country, and I love the fact that we have all this public land, and I love the fact that we pay taxes into a system that makes a lot of that resources. We all own that, right? We all own a piece of our public land and our wildlife. So to have a company, a business with an agenda that is going to spread lies to the general public and spread lies to our children, we need to just rise above that. You know.
Do you feel like coming from Europe, coming from England, and seeing what has happened over the years, and, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what has happened to a lot of hunting over there, do you feel like that makes you even more passionate about wanting to make sure that people wake up and realize that, you know, what we have, to not take it for granted? I mean, obviously hunting is different in Europe than it is here in the United States.
It's a commodity.
Until you go to Europe, you don't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a little bit more. I've had a little bit more exposure to like European hunting or English hunting, so I'm familiar with how the general public views it there and where it fits in society, and it's completely different to the US. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I moved here, I moved to the United States July 2nd, 1994, and it was within the first couple of years, I think they banned handguns in the UK. And I was just seeing everybody just handing their handguns back. And in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, my goodness, like, there's never been a problem with firearms in the UK growing up. And I grew up in a very rough city, extremely rough city. And people would use fists and sticks, before they were pulling out a handgun because they just didn't have access to it. The people that had handguns, even at that point, were mostly either straight up criminals, which we all know will do anything they want to get their agenda handled, because they're criminals. That's what they do. And then generally private landowners, who had farms, who had a reason to have a handgun if they need something, if they need to kill something right away for safety reasons, or if they need it for their general day-to-day work. They need to have that thing, so they had to remove it from them. Just removed a problem that wasn't there in the UK. And just removed the general public's ability to protect itself, and that's what the liberals are going at right now. Like, I'm not a super political guy. I'm all about, like, whoever has the right agenda and is going to see that through and get the result. And if that's something that I'm in line with, then I can support that. But I can't support what's going on in the US right now with firearms, all the stuff in the media, where there's all that, the fake media of all these shootings that are questionable. That just coincidentally, isn't it coincident that it's like it's almost on a calendar schedule. Like, I run a business, right, and you have to hit deadlines. It's almost like the stuff that's rolling out in the media is already
like we need a perfect story to fit this. Yeah.
Well, we have a plan, and here's the start of our plan. We start seeding this regularly, and then they knock away at the little things that let them through the door to get their bigger agenda. We all know that. That's law, right? It's not what's the saying? It's not a justice system. It's a legal system. If you can get away with it under the law, then you're going to get away with it, whether it's ethical or morally, viable or not. That's beside the point. And with firearms, like, I can't speak for, like, Australia and places like that, but the fact that Canada, you can't have handguns in Canada or go into Canada with handguns, and, like, just ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. Like, that. I mean, when has that been a problem, really? Like, whenever a crime is committed by a criminal, if they want to get that stuff, they're going to get it, right? They're in those circles. So make them accountable, stand them up, and I don't know. So that's a hard one to fight when you have most of the media has an anti-gun kind of agenda, and then you have city people that are so disconnected from the outdoors and from their own personal safety, and that troubles me. But I do think that, like, I do think that, having said that, we know hunting participation is down, right? A lot. There's a huge push in of guys my age and guys just below my age or just a little bit older than me to really put food on their table that they harvested themselves, because they know they're disconnected now. We're getting so far removed with all of our technology. The more 10 minutes a day we add on to sitting at our phone, that's 10 minutes we're disconnected from our environment, right? So I think that's why you have a kind of a push a little bit especially with food, because people can understand that. They understand, go kill an animal, then I'll eat it. Well, that's actually a justifiable means, right? If I'm going to kill it and then I'm going to eat it, no one can say anything, right? I can understand that in my head. I don't understand any other aspect of hunting because I've never done it, but I do get the idea of somebody wanting to put food on their table for their family. So the more we can sell that, or just educate people on the values of that. I mean, I'm standing here right now. I'm in my knife machine shop in Signal Hill, which is a 2,000 square foot machine shop, and knives don't take up a lot of space, so they're here. And I have a freezer next to me that's full of probably 300 pounds of buffalo meat. Right, like, completely. My family's set for, like, next couple of years with what's there and what's in my house. Right, and I know where all of that meat came from. and I know who'd harvested it, and I know by what means, right? And so I can feed my family knowing what I'm putting in them and what it's going to do for them, right? And there's value for that. So I think the more we can find ways to introduce people to that, I think that's huge. I think because that could really set a new kind of course, and I see that happening a lot. A lot of people are asking me about what we're doing. Jake and I just did a mule deer hunt a couple of weekends ago with a friend of mine, who is a director and a very accomplished and very, very talented director and a fashion photographer, and he is in the skate industry, and he owns a skate business, and it's probably, I don't know if it's the biggest one right now, but it's arguably the most important one in our industry right now. And he wants to do a cooking show, and he'd never hunted. And so he called me and said, I know that you do this stuff. Can you help me? I want to go on a hunt. Can you help me figure out how to do that? So Jake and I helped him over the course of like a year and a half, making sure he got everything set and he applied in the right areas, and then we figured it out from there. And he wanted a no bullshit, just raw hunt. He said, I want to pack in. I don't want any creature comforts. I want it down nitty gritty, like throw me in the deep end kind of thing. And so we did a pack string into our local mountains and hunted with him there. And after the hunt, and he'd harvested the animal, we took a great shot. I think it was at 320 yards, and I think the animal went about 20 yards, 15, 20 yards, and was done, right? And after the animal, when we got back to camp and we were leaving and everything, I dropped him off at home, drove him all the way to, Santa Monica, and Jake took the meat, and I took the animal's skull and horns to clean for him. And he said to me that it was a life-changing moment for him. That's a guy that's in the fashion world. He shoots fashion photography all day around in the most luxurious situations. And he was interested in it because of the harvest of the meat and the experience of what it would take for him to do that, And he said it was a life-changing experience. And he's a very well-educated, very smart, very successful, very talented individual. The more people like that we can get involved and make it easy for them to get into it and figure it out, because it's a complicated process. If you don't do it, like, and someone says to me, hey, I want to go hunt with you. I'm like, well, what do you want to hunt? That's the first question. What do you want to hunt? And they go, well, I don't know, just something like an elk or something like that. And I look and go, well, we're in California. If you want to hunt an elk, it's not going to be as simple as we'd like it to be. So I think if we can find ways, in our western states to implement that, or just try to do as much of that, I think that will help, and a guy like what we guided, if he starts a cooking show and it's the biggest show on Netflix, right, and he gets all wild meat from all of the best resources in the western U.S. or North America or worldwide, and he's working with people in the industry that are very well networked and very supportive of what he's doing, and it's a great reflection and a great look. You'd be surprised how far some of those things can go. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this probably are familiar with Jackass and are familiar with like Viva La Bam and all those MTV shows. That was a huge deal, right? Like massive amount of exposure for all of those guys. They all came from skateboarding. They came from a skateboard magazine, and then Bam came from making videos with his friends that were funny, and they made a show out of it. And it was just groundbreaking, right? Well, that got a lot of people to ride a skateboard, right? And it also got a lot of people to understand that what we do isn't just kind of super clinical and drab. There's a lot of cultural relevancy to it, and there's a lot of creativity to it. I think kind of opening up new ideas and new things in hunting is where it needs to go, because the traditional old ways of standing by your laurels and going, this is the way it always was, and I'm going to stand by that till the day that I die. We don't have that luxury anymore. We don't. We have to listen to the bull crap that's like just fake news and just lies and propaganda, and we have to be smarter than that. And we have to bring people into the industry that are younger and smarter than that, or even older and smarter than that, right? And so That's kind of where my head's at with it. That like, this huge hunt that we just had with Goliath is such a monumental experience for everybody and so much hard work. And Jake should tell you every little bit about that, because it's Jake's baby, and I'm just freaking so proud of him, right? But him and I and Josh Shulgin and all of our guys, we put in so much time and work and effort, and every day we're communicating with each other going, well, what about this? And I went here and I saw that, well, what about that? We've even put that kind of intensity into the bigger picture, and Kuyu's doing that. Kuyu's doing that big time, super respectful, really professional business, run from the head down, right? And you need inspired leadership in any industry to change those industries, and Jason certainly is that. And so we just need more of that, right? We need as much of that as we can get, without the hidden agenda of, you're just doing this so you can have more hunting access or you can have more hunting opportunities. Well, yeah, we are. You know what? But if we don't do this, we're not going to have any hunting opportunities. So that's the way I look at it. It's a ticking time bomb. We either stand up and like try to get in front of a bigger audience, but have that audience want to listen is the biggest challenge. On that, and so I don't know. I look forward to hunting my ass off and trying to learn everything there is to know. And I've been guiding with Jake since he started Kika Outfitters and helping him on all his California sheep hunts. And so every time we go on those sheep hunts, it's a new experience for me. But the whole rest of the year, I'm scouting all those ranges that we have clients for and that we don't, or we have potential clients for. So I'm throwing myself in the deep end. I'm committed to continuing to keep guiding, and especially with sheep. And then also, growing my knife brand and kind of trying to go at some of those issues I'm talking about through that business. And it's early days. The business has been around for like three or 4 years, and I'm just getting my handle on production, because production with like low grade industrial manufacturing is very difficult. It's actually it's very expensive. So you've got to get it right. And we just put the finishing touches on it. I think I sent you a picture of that razor blade skinner. It's called the IBK. I don't know if I sent you. I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah, you did. It looks incredible.
We've been testing that for like the last 6-8 months on, mule deer hunts, sheep hunts, buffalo, everything that we could get our hands on. And Jake designed it. It's in manufacturing right now, and it's going to actually deliver. It's late, obviously, for this season, but we're going to actually market it and promote it and build it in so it's in real early for next season. So we're actually looking at all those ad buys in all of the hunting digests in the Southwest right now to try to really let people know that, as a knife brand, we're not just coming in with your traditional knives. We're actually trying to improve the product, and we're trying to give the professionals, which is the guides, as we know, like they're the best outdoorsmen in the world. Hunting guides are some of the best, are just, they're special people, right? And you know that, Jay, you've spent a lot of time with those guys where you've been on either booked hunts or you just know them or you've just been around them, and you see some of the skill sets are above and beyond just putting somebody in a position to take a shot. Just exceptional map work, exceptional foresight, and really understanding of every kind of firearms caliber and capability, and the client's capabilities. Like, there's a lot to being good at an outfitter and a guide, and I want to support that through my knife brand. I want to support those guides. Those are the best outdoorsmen in the world. They use skinning knives more than anybody else, and they're out there in the deserts, mountains, and wild places in North America than anybody else. So they're a perfect person to test a product and to tell you whether it's cruddy or not, or whether there's voids in the marketplace. And the number one void is just a really poor quality product that's out there right now that's really cheaply made and doesn't last very long, breaks, is very unsafe and dangerous, and just really low quality. The blades snap a lot, they don't lock in correctly, the design of them is dangerous. And so we went at every one of those issues and went, how do we basically just remove all of those issues with a better product and better design? And so that's what we've done, and we have a fixed blade coming out. It'll be out before the new year, but then it'll go straight into folding knife once we're absolutely 110% sure that it's A1 perfect. And it's the lightest razor blade skinning knife on the market. And when it comes out, it's made of titanium. And it's got a lot of like bells and whistles that once you see it and once you get it in your hand, you'll realize why it is the way it is and why it's, where those little design details, what their purpose is. And so I'm excited to get that out to the Western hunting market, and so they can see that, this dude that's a skater is not just trying to come in and just change careers or do anything like that. Quite the opposite. I'm pursuing what I love to do that I've put on the back burner my whole life, and life's too short. And I have so much experience with product and product development and marketing and running a business in action sports that I'd like to bring some of that younger, kind of fresher take into the outdoor space, and into the hunting market specifically, and try to develop product that's missing or try to just improve what's there. And so that's kind of really what we're doing. We're striving to make just the best product that we possibly can, and we'll continue to do that every single time we develop a new piece. I don't know.
I've been wearing that folding silverware knife all late summer and all fall and here at the ranch, and I wear it on my belt every single day and absolutely love it. I mean, it just fits in my hand. It's extremely durable. I've done things with that knife that you probably shouldn't be doing with the knife, and it's held up unbelievable, and it's still razor sharp.
I like that little folder for skinning little animals, is what it's nice for.
I'm really impressed with this knife. I was going to tell you that I really like this knife. It's literally on my belt every single day, and I use it for everything here at the ranch. I mean, just it's a crazy little knife, and I love it. So you really hit a home run with that knife.
Thanks, Jay.
And I really am excited about your passion for the business and the reasons why you're in the knife business, and I know you're going to do very, very well with that. And it's been an awesome conversation here, and I love hearing the passion that you have for all your different activities, whether it be your professional life of skateboarding or your company of silverware and your guiding, and it's no wonder at all that how successful you've been in the skateboarding industry and all the companies and major brands. I mean, we don't need to get into that, but I mean, the biggest brands in your industry you have been involved with, and hearing you talk now and never having met you in person, I know exactly why you've been successful, and I just appreciate you coming on and sharing with us and sharing your love for the game, so to speak, with us. And I'm excited to meet you one day in person, and I will continue to follow you on Instagram and follow your successes moving forward. And I do think you're right in that we do need to stand up and we do need to educate the public on the issues that we're facing in our country, whether it be the removal of guns or trophy hunting or trying to stop hound hunting or predator hunting or lion hunting, or just people's perceptions of how they say a word. I mean, the word trophy hunting, it's just got such a negative connotation, and a lot of people, it rolls off their tongue and they don't even know what it is, or hound hunting, there's just no understanding there. So I think you are a perfect ambassador for being able to bridge that gap between a lot of people that you come in contact with that maybe have never hunted ever in their life, and to hear the passion you have in your voice about trying to make people aware of how you do it and how you see guides and outfitters and other hunters and the respect that they have for it. And so I think it takes people like you to preserve what we have, and I think it's we have so many amazing opportunities in the U.S. with the public land. And the reality is, all across the world, there are not opportunities like what we have here.
No, we have some special. We have some really
we can't let them slip away, for sure. Yeah. Well, buddy, it's been so awesome having you on.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everything you do for Western hunting. And like I said, I'm looking forward to listening to Jason Harrison's podcast now. I'm going to get off the phone. And I'm still on my sheep high. I told you you're going to have to work real hard to get me off the sheep high. And you have not done so, Jay. You've got more work ahead of you. But I truly appreciate you having me on the show. And I look forward to meeting you. And like I said, I'll be in Arizona and Sedona all of next week. And, I get out in Arizona regularly. I'll be out there lion hunting with Andy Knowlton at Rimrock Outfitters in probably late January or something like that. So maybe there's a chance I can stop by and we can meet up. And I just look forward to seeing you, and I support you in every way. And just congratulations on how well everything's going for your podcast. And thanks for having me on. Very much appreciated.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much. It's been awesome. God bless you. I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thanks, Jay. Take care.